Welcome to today's explainer. All right, I want you to picture the scene. You're sitting in a high-stakes corporate crisis meeting, and the tension in the room is literally thick enough to cut with a knife. Margins are way down, a massive project has just derailed, and everyone is talking over each other in this frantic multinational environment. People are pointing fingers, or honestly worse, dodging responsibility entirely. In a moment exactly like this, precise communication isn't just some nice-to-have soft skill, it is absolutely a matter of professional survival.
Okay, let's dive into this. Imagine your chief operating officer leaning forward, lowering their voice just a bit, and delivering this exact sentence. What we actually need is more time. Notice they don't just say, "We need more time." No, they use a highly specific grammatical phrasing that instantly cuts right through all that boardroom noise. It commands the room, it demands total attention, and it focuses everyone on a single undeniable priority. And how do they do it? By utilizing an advanced C1 level English grammar structure known as a cleft sentence. So to get us communicating with that exact same level of executive presence, here's our crisis meeting action plan, drawn straight from our C1 English source material. We'll start by looking at the multinational crisis, move into isolating problems with its clefts, and then look at strategic focus with which clefts. After that, we'll hit the tactical error clinic and finish up with an audio analysis exercise. Let's start with Section 1, the multinational crisis. So why do these meetings derail in the first place? Well, it's mostly because standard, neutral sentences are notoriously weak when the pressure is really on. In a diverse team where English is the shared language, flat phrasing often causes confusion and totally diffuses responsibility. But the solution? The cleft sentence. This is a complex structure that takes a standard clause and cleaves or divides it into two parts. The entire goal here is to isolate and heavily emphasize crucial, specific information. You can kind of think of it as a communicative scalpel, slicing right through the corporate jargon to clarify exactly what went wrong. And this brilliantly illustrates the difference. A neutral phrase like, "the marketing strategy failed," is just flat. In a loud meeting, half the room might miss it, or worse, they might wrongly blame the product itself. But if we use a cleft sentence, "it was the marketing strategy that failed, not the product," there is absolutely zero room for misinterpretation. By splitting the sentence, the product team is shielded from blame, and the spotlight goes exactly where it needs to be.
Moving on to Section 2, isolating problems with it clefts.
The it cleft is arguably the sharpest tool in your executive arsenal for constructively pointing a finger. A vague statement like, "John told me about the budget deficit," totally lacks punch. But the it cleft transforms it. "It was John who told me about the budget deficit." See how that perfectly isolates the who? It completely removes any ambiguity about where this critical financial information came from. You aren't just sharing a random fact, you're making a very deliberate point about the source. Here's an incredibly powerful application of this in a real crisis. It is the design team that must act now, not operations. By placing the design team right after the introductory "it is," undeniable responsibility is assigned. Picture a multinational call with 50 people on mute. Operations can breathe a massive sigh of relief, and the design team knows exactly what's expected of them without a shadow of a doubt. Now for Section 3, strategic focus with clefts. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it shifts our strategy. If it clefts isolates specific details, we clefts are unparalleled for framing overarching needs and big picture strategy. The psychological effect going on here is honestly fascinating. "We need a complete structural overhaul" kind of sounds like a mere suggestion, or maybe even a complaint. But the we clefts, "what we actually need is a complete structural overhaul," acts like a drum roll. The what clause builds anticipation, literally forcing the listener to wait a split second before the crucial revelation hits with maximum impact. And, it's not just for making demands either. Simply saying, "what I find interesting is the lack of communication," instantly creates this aura of absolute authority. It sounds measured, it sounds analytical, and completely in control. Which is exactly why politicians, CEOs, and thought leaders rely so heavily on this specific pattern when they're addressing a crowd or managing a tough crisis. All right, Section 4, the tactical error clinic. Listen, these structures are advanced, and executing them poorly will immediately dilute your presence. A really common trap is redundancy, like saying, "what we needed is more time." Adding that extra "it" completely ruins the flow. It should just be, "what we need is more time."
Then we have agreement errors. Managers are people, right? So it was the managers who decided, not which. And since what I want acts as a singular subject, it's what I want is to fix the issue. These seem like small slips, but they can strip the authority right out of your message.
So the crucial point is that while these structures are incredibly powerful, they require absolute precision. Avoid using which for people. Always double-check your subject-verb agreement. Watch out for those redundant pronouns that try to sneak in and dilute your focus. And perhaps, most importantly, avoid overusing them. If every single sentence you speak is a cleft sentence, it stops sounding like executive presence and just starts sounding unnatural. Use them strategically, kind of like a well-timed pause.
Finally, Section 5, our audio analysis exercise. Let's actually put this into practice together. I want you to imagine our COO standing at the head of the boardroom table. They take a deep breath and say, "It was the sudden drop in Q3 sales that forced our hand." Think about that structure for a second. Based on the rules we've just uncovered, what specific element is being emphasized here? What exactly is the COO isolating?
Did you catch it? The focus is entirely on the root cause, the sudden drop in Q3 sales. The CEO has expertly isolated the exact trigger of the crisis. But more importantly, notice what they didn't do. They totally avoided pinning personal blame on the sales team or the marketing department. They made the event the focus of the iCleft, maintaining extreme professionalism while very clearly identifying the problem. That right there is the mark of brilliant communication.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative question. Are your sentences cutting through the corporate noise, or are they just adding to it? The next time you step into a high-stakes meeting, don't just speak to be heard, speak to be understood. Apply these IT clefs and WH clefs to transform your communication style, take control of the narrative, and really lead the conversation. Thank you so much for joining me today to explore this amazing grammatical toolkit.